Hello everyone and welcome to my presentation, Wild Vancouver Finding Hope and Joy in Nature During the Pandemic. I'm very honoured to be invited to talk at the Delta Naturalist Society's annual general meeting. Thank you for this opportunity to share my work and passion with you all. Before I start my presentation, I'd like to respectfully acknowledge that the place I call Wild Vancouver is the unceded territory of the Coast Salish, Musqueam, Squamish, Tsleil-Waututh and Stolo First Nations. Look at this coyote and heron. They seem to be playing with each other. This is in the early morning dawn on Boundary Bay. There's a bald eagle and lots of plovers and sandpipers. What a wonderful sight. I've always had a love for wildlife and nature, but it wasn't until I arrived in Canada nearly 10 years ago that it became a passion, and I took up photography and especially videography. I love to capture wildlife and birds in action and the interaction between the species. Northern harriers are maybe my spark bird. Watching them fly and soar over the marsh is just incredible. The birds, wildlife and natural scenic beauty here in British Columbia is unparalleled. I've been lucky enough to live in some really beautiful parts of the world, but British Columbia has stolen my heart. Now I know I'm preaching to the choir here with this presentation. All of you in Delta Nats know exactly what I'm trying to get across, how good nature makes all of us feel. I like to walk as often as I can for my own mental health. I know how good it makes me feel, but until the pandemic I didn't realize quite how important it was to everyone's mental health. I have friends all over the world, and during those awful first few months my friends told me my short daily nature videos saved them. The birds and wildlife I saw during those first few months were so special too. There was no traffic, everything was quiet. No planes, no buses, no trains, just a wonderful silence. Filming in Vancouver, I often have to compete with a lot of background noise. Those noisy planes, trains, boats, traffic, and so many people. But from personal observation, the birds and wildlife enjoyed the peace too. I captured some of the most wonderful bird song during that time with no background noise. I took our BC healthcare team's advice and walked as often as I could, keeping close to home in Delta until the restrictions lifted. I put my nature therapy content up online and received some terrific feedback from people who couldn't get out, who were literally in lockdown. They sent me cards and messages thanking me for giving them a brief escape into nature, even if it was only virtual. I'm very lucky to have a very supportive family who believe in me. They always have my back. When I'm grumpy and in a bad mood, they push me out the door, hand me my camera, go for a walk, Mum. They say, go look at birds. They know what makes me feel better. Here's my daughter Erin on her birthday and sunflowers in Chilliwack in the summer. I love my family very much. I don't know what I'd do without them. These are my 3 young people at Alouette Lake at the very start of the pandemic. It was a very scary time, and there's talk of the parks closing, so we had a quiet family picnic there in our little bubble. And a few days after this, the parks closed. My eldest daughter lives in New Zealand with my grandchildren, and she often sends me photos of the birds she sees there. I follow the Miranda Trust online, and I always try to let her know. The bar-tailed godwits are leaving Alaska. They're on their way to the Coromandel, which is in New Zealand. Let me know if you see any. The one thing I really love about social media and the internet is the amount of really interesting information that is available. Now, I'm not a professional or any kind of expert. I'm just a very keen birder and naturalist, and what I really love about being an environmentalist is you keep learning every day. Although I walk quite often, no day is ever the same. I always keep my Sibley's bird book close at hand, and I have a funny story to tell you here. I'd heard that the Delta Nat brochures were out, so one day I picked up a few at my local library. I threw them on the table and I was putting up my video of my walk at Centennial Beach, this one here on the screen, near Sawasan. I'd videoed some little fish and crabs and eelgrass in the shallow waters and some lugworm casts and jellyfish. Then the top brochure caught my eye. I thought, oh, that's my jellyfish. And then I read the description. It's not a jellyfish at all. It's the egg sac of the lugworm. Oh my goodness, you learn something new every day. So thank you for the brochures. Now I'd actually contributed a photo to them of this rough-skinned newt. Now I'd seen, my first ever sighting was in April of 2020, and I was crossing the cycle track in Delta. I never touch wildlife if I can help it. I only touch it if it needs assistance. And I try to wear gloves if I can. Here I am moving it off the trail into the horsetail ferns. In August of 2020, I was invited by Owl Rehab to film and witness this bald eagle release. Look at him go. Oh my God. That was just so exhilarating. Just absolutely made my day. So many good things happened during the pandemic. Despite all the awfulness, there were just so many good things, especially nature-based. We all know how much good work Owl Rehab does every single day. Now here, I'm at Boundary Bay Dyke Trail and I'm looking north at the North Shore Mountains, and I'm actually trying to look for Neowise the comet. I didn't see it, but I spent many hours scouring the night sky. It's absolutely beautiful. Luckily, Christian Sassy is a great friend of mine. He's a patron and a supporter, and I got to look at his images and videos. I absolutely love his work, and he's a brilliant eagle photographer too. One of my highlights during the pandemic was watching bald eagle nests for Hancock Wildlife Foundation. When the pandemic first started, the eagles were just beginning to sit on their nests, so it was a wonderful escape to go watch these magnificent birds incubating their eggs. Look at it glaring down at me. If nature can carry on its business, then so could I. Now this is another nest, and my first sighting of the season of a baby bald eagle. Can you see that little white fluffy head there? I just can't describe the wonder and joy that filled me. Suddenly the world was a better place. Watching this mummy delicately, look how delicately she feeds him. Now the baby's maybe a week old, it's the middle of April. It just made all the world problems just disappear, and I was just grinning all day long. Too wonderful for words. This is a few months later, and this is at one of my favourite nests to watch. I call it Tall Tree's Nest. And this is a mother panting in the heat there. Now she has 2 babies, and you can watch them squabbling here. And sometimes nature just makes me laugh. You can almost imagine her saying, "Cut it out, you two." The animal antics. I can watch nature all day long. It's sometimes so wonderful and very rewarding. Now, here I am in spring watching the fuzzy balls of fluff that are baby great horned owls as they emerge and blink into the morning sun. Aren't they just beautiful? Look at those yellow eyes. Oh, and there's 2 there. Hello, babies. And when the world is in crisis and everything's so stressful and worrisome in our human lives, I stand and look at these wonderful little balls of fluff grooming their fluffy feathers, and suddenly the world is just a much better place. Now I do monthly water bird surveys for Birds Canada, and I've fallen deeply in love with the little dunlin, the sandpipers, the plovers, the migratory birds, and I love watching them dance across the bay, often chased by a merlin or peregrine. It just gives me so much pleasure. I lose all track of time as they swirl and perform with such beauty and grace. Doesn't it look just magic? We are so incredibly lucky to have such an abundance of birds and wildlife here in Vancouver, particularly in the Delta area. It's a really important bird area. Thousands of migratory birds visit our region to overwinter in our Fraser River, Delta and Boundary Bay. We must look after this environment and protect and conserve it for the birds. We also get a lot of migratory raptors. Look at this exquisite short-eared owl. There's a coal train running behind him. He keeps looking behind him to see what's going on. And they're beautiful. Look at that lovely face. We also get long-eared owls, and in eruption years, we're sometimes lucky enough to see a snowy owl. And we also get rough-legged hawks, which are quite the most beautiful raptors. They all spend their winters here in our milder climates, attracted by the rich food found in our river, delta and bay. We have hundreds of bald eagles, red-tailed hawks, northern harriers, barn owls, barred owls, great horned owls, and they all love to hunt our salt marshes and farm fields for rodents and voles. Please never use rodenticides. Raptors are the solution. I read reports from owl rehab. Too many raptors are brought in with rodenticide poisoning, which is very, very depressing. Now, I believe in science and in documenting and tagging and banding, researching and trying to learn as much about the natural world as we can. It's the only way we can save it for the future and maybe save ourselves too. I spent a lot of time at the Peregrine Falcon nest site in Abbotsford, along with many other concerned naturalists, environmentalists and photographers. And quite honestly, having this to fight for gave me a real sense of purpose and focus. It was so motivating. It made me get outside, think about something else despite the pandemic, even though I spent most of my time in tears at the infuriating behaviour of the mine and the government's lack of care. I saw my first ever baby peregrine falcons. Can you see the two little baby white bundles of fluff there? Too wonderful. Now, during the summer, once the BC parks reopened, we went to one of my favourite parks, Manning, near Hope. I'm sure you all know it well. And the footage I got that first summer was absolutely unbelievable. The subalpine wildflowers were absolutely splendid. The forest was beautiful. And the wildlife had been left alone for several months by this time. And they were using the trails as if they owned the place, which of course they do. I had some of the most magical and enchanting encounters of my life. Every morning, I'd go down to Lightning Lake early. And I had the whole place to myself. And I used to follow this deer down to the lake. As I'd watch her as she foraged along the trail, and then she'd cross the lake, often swimming across or crossing at the slower point. And then one day, when I'm standing on the Rainbow Bridge, and I look down, there's two otters swimming below me. I just took my breath away. I just couldn't believe what I was seeing. It was like something out of a Disney movie. It was just pure magic. The whole scene just made the rest of the world just disappear, and suddenly I was in this magic place, and there's the mummy deer crossing ahead. She had very full udders, so I think she had her babies hidden somewhere. Isn't it just enchanting? Wonderful. Shortly afterwards, we took a road trip to Quesnel to look for foxes. Now, I didn't find any foxes, but look what I found. My first ever sighting of a lynx. Isn't he beautiful? Look at those black ear tips. Now, I grew up in Africa, and I've always loved cats, the big cats, any cats. I absolutely adore them. Look at his little tongue poking out. Too beautiful. Now, I'm quite a respectful distance from him, so he's not worried. I'm not worried. Just too beautiful for words. I was just filled with wonder looking at him. My first big cat in Canada. thought he might be a bobcat, but see the black tip to his tail? Experts told me that means he's a lynx. Absolutely beautiful. Now, I was also very honoured to have one of my photos make the cover of British Columbia Birds. That really lifted my spirits, I can tell you. Now, one of the greatest things to help everyone in the pandemic was, of course, the internet and social media. We could connect safely with other people. We could share information and photos. Despite the lockdown, we could talk and connect with people online without fear of spreading or catching COVID. Social media, of course, is a double-edged sword and definitely has its drawbacks. The recent Stanley Park coyote debacle nearly broke my heart. I love sharing my finds, and like most of you here, like many other people, other photographers, I love getting outside into nature to photograph birds and wildlife. And many of my friends and followers, we're all on the same page. We all put wildlife and nature first. But sadly, there are some who don't think as we do, who are only in it for the money shot, who think nothing of getting too close, trampling the fragile environment, stressing, baiting, and even feeding wildlife. Fed wildlife is dead wildlife. I try to put the message across in every post I make online to respect wildlife and put nature first. Wildlife that shares our city has a right to live in peace from human interference, and they should be respected. During the pandemic, I started my Friday Facts on my YouTube channel. It was a weekly 15 to 20 minute documentary, more for entertainment than education, but I love research and I always try to check that all my facts were correct. I'd showcase a different bird or wildlife each week, and it was really good to keep busy making these films. But sadly, most people's attention span is only 15 seconds, but I hope to get back to it. Now, another disturbing side of social media is that this video of a sleeping great horned owl only got a handful of views, but the terrified wide eyes and defensive spread-wing posture of an unethical birder's video got millions of likes and shares. Sometimes I just don't understand people at all. I always try to implement Audubon Bird's code of conduct regarding ethical behaviour in the wild. Now, Melissa Hufting is a very good friend of mine. I'm sure you all know her. She runs the BC Rare Bird Alert. She's a wildlife biologist, and she's an inspiration to me. She gets things done. That's what I really love about her. And I love reading her blog, Dare to Bird. Mel also takes young people out into the field and gets them interested in birding. That's just what our young people need. She never ceases to amaze me. She's also the first person I report interesting bird finds to, because I often don't know what they are, but I know she always will. And like me, she also knows the importance of ethical birding behaviour, and she's just let me know this week that Delta City Council will be putting up signs and taking action against people harassing the owls along Boundary Bay Dyke Trail. That's just great news because there's so much disappointing behaviour going on. What the pandemic brought home to me is how important nature, birds and wildlife are, not only to me but to all of us. And I think we as naturalists should be more proactive in making sure birds and wildlife are respected and nature and the environment are protected. Now, this isn't a photo on the screen, it's a video. It's Mummy Bald Eagle chillaxing in the sun with her spread-eagled wings. She's got 2 babies, about 3 to 4 months old, in the nest nearby. She's just taking a break for them. Isn't she beautiful? Oh, I love these raptors. They just make my day to see them. I hope to always keep fighting for the protection of endangered species, for nature conservation, and of course respect for wildlife. For me, that's the most important thing. Ethical wildlife behaviour. Wildlife and birds always come first. No photograph is ever worth stressing a wild creature for. Look at this red tail drying her wings and tail. Isn't she beautiful? Even in the pouring rain. So get outside. It's a wonderful place to renew your soul. A walk in nature, watching birds and wildlife is so good for you. It's good for your physical health, and it's great, really great for your mental health too. And if you walk quietly, listen to the sounds of nature and be aware of your surroundings. And if you show respect, you will be rewarded with most wonderful encounters. There are a lot of fantastic online groups and resources to help you get outside, like the Delta Nats. BC Bird Trail is another great resource, and Metro Vancouver Parks are a fantastic place to start. Their trails are generally easy and well maintained, and often wheelchair accessible too. Oh, just look at these otters on the screen. This just made my day. I think there were 8, but I lifted my camera too late, so there's only 4. But they were crossing the trail in front of me. That made my day. My favourite poem is The Peace of Wild Things by Wendell Berry. When you go out into nature, your soul is restored, and the worries of the world are definitely put into perspective. Thank you for watching my presentation. I hope you enjoyed my videos. Please feel free to follow me on my social media. You can find me on most platforms as Pacific Northwest Kate. YouTube has the highest resolution for my videos, so I like that one the most. But I'm also on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and TikTok. I have a Patreon account for anyone who wants to support me, and my book, Wild Vancouver, Finding Hope and Joy in Nature in 2020, is up on Blurb. Thank you so much for your time, everyone. I really appreciate it. A big thank you, Delta Nats, for this wonderful opportunity to share some of my passion and wildlife videos with you all. I've really enjoyed putting this presentation together. It brought back many good memories. It reminded me of the good times. They weren't all bad. Despite the pandemic, there were many wonderful encounters. Stay safe, everyone. Be kind. Please respect wildlife and always try to put nature first.